Ann Herbster. Are you ready to get started today?
Yes, I am, Rhonda Boyle.
Me
Get this
too.
going.
We've
Yeah.
got a great day planned here for day 3 of the Launch and Grow Challenge. Come on in. It is
Looking forward
time
to
to get started. Yeah, me too. We've got a busy, full day today. So
Although
come on in.
the session won't run the full day, but we have a lot to cover.
True. So let's rock this place down now. Hey, Ann Herbster. I'm Rhonda Boyle. Good to see everybody. Come on in. We really do have a great day planned today. We're going to be talking about workshops, having a foundational workshop,
Or a
and
coaching
a package. Yeah. Chances are you'll end up with both, won't you?
Probably.
And very often one leads to the other and vice versa. So sometimes you can do either or, backwards or forwards. Workshops lead to coaching clients, and coaching clients leads to workshops. So yeah, you really do need to have both, although, and we don't recommend they do both initially, do we?
Right. We want you to start with one. Pick the one that's going to be tied to your ideal client and your coaching focus, your coaching program focus that you're going to have. So this is a good session. We've covered a lot already. Identify what your challenges are and your support mechanisms. Who's your ideal client? Are they corporations or individuals? And now we're going to define and talk about how to design the workshop to go with those ideal clients or a coaching package to go with those individual clients.
That's right. Now, every bit of this comes from our new book, The Coach Business Guide, The Path to Launch and Grow Your Coaching Practice. It took us 2 years to birth this baby after working with hundreds of coaches. And so this challenge is really for you to jumpstart you and push you forward fast and cover some of the significant parts in the book. And this is, of course, one of them, working on creating a workshop and a coaching package. So why have one?
Well, first of all, let's make sure everybody got their worksheet. They downloaded the worksheet. So make sure you have that, because we want you to follow along, jot down ideas. Maybe you'll get some pearls of wisdom that are going to come up as you listen to us as we go on about this. But the bottom line is, it's critical to map out what you're going to do.
Yeah, it really is. And it's also important to have something to offer people. So when you have a clear offering, it is easier for you to pitch, so to speak, or share with people and let them know, because you're speaking your ideal client's language, because you're so familiar with what it is that you offer. So you really want to be really clear here. And the benefit is that it allows you to have a more stable income.
Right. So let's get started. We're going to start with some basics, which is defining materials. And what we want you to do is create a master list of everything that you own, have created, have the rights or access to, or things that you're familiar with and can get the access to. So let's start with, what do you have access to? Maybe you've created some templates or you created some worksheets. Those things absolutely need to go in this. And don't just think about things around your ideal client. We want you to put everything in this master list. It may not be relevant now, but later you're going to keep adding to this list and you want to come back to it.
Well, it'll also spark ideas that will lead you, like some of these things that you've used over time or you've been exposed to, you can adapt them. And so that's why you want to go ahead and make note of them, even though you may not think you can use it right now.
Right. And, what have you developed? You might have developed various programs. You may have actually created your own program that you can use because it's something you created. Just make sure that you have the rights to whatever materials that go with that. And I mentioned earlier this whole copyright. We're all about being protected. And that means if you have taken a course and you have rights to that material or have to pay for the rights to that material, make sure that you're aligned with what the copyright is. Don't use somebody else's materials that you either haven't gotten permission to use. Only use those materials that you have access to. Maybe you're certified in some programs and they give you access to materials. But this whole idea is just pull this whole list together so that we're going to use this later as when we talk about creating your either one-to-one or your one-to-many packages. But you've probably got access to a whole lot of stuff. So take the time to really fill that in. And remember, be broad, not narrow.
So another thing that you're going to want to do is actually create your sessions. So let's say that you're going to do what we call a one-to-many, which is a workshop. It's one of you and you're working with many people. You need to have some basic information in order to even create a session, like what's it going to look like? Are you going to have it for 2 hours? Is it a 4-day? How long is all day? In fact, all day may be only 6 hours by the time you think through your breaks and those types of things. Or maybe you're doing it for multiple days. Yeah. And then you really need to know how many people you can handle. I know for myself, if I'm speaking from the front of the room, I have spoken in front of 200 people, and I'm sure you may have even done way more than that, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so I'm not comfortable in that space, though. I would much prefer to be working with people in about 30 people because that way I can connect to my audience and all that. Well, you need to know how many people is your best situation.
That's right. And as you're thinking about basic information, these are the basic details that outline what it is your program is going to be about, and you're going to have, how do you describe it? How do you briefly describe it? What's going to include? Are you going to have food? Are you going to have breaks? This is where you're just doing some basic. We're going to drill down to more specifics in a minute. So the next question is objectives and outcomes. And this needs to be identified and defined for you as the coach, but also for your client, because this is going to help guide you what you're going to need to accomplish. And you're going to tell your client what you're going to accomplish, and not what you are going to accomplish, but what your participants are going to be what they're going to do, and what the outcome is as a result of them going through your training. So you want to make sure that you've got clarity around this and that you're going to ultimately build your program around this. And this is going to help you also define and you got to ask this question: what support am I going to need from the organization to be successful? So let me give you an example. If you're introducing a communication style and you're introducing it to a group within an organization, and you're only introducing it to one group within that organization and not the rest of the other groups that are interacting with that group, your likelihood of success is going to be far less than if you introduced it to the entire group, because those individuals in the group understand and are going to start using those communication style tools, but everybody else isn't. So those are the types of things you want to think about. And when you talk about support and what you need to be successful with your clients, and your participants need to be successful with your client, these are the kinds of things you need to consider.
Yeah. And then how are you going to measure it? More importantly, how are they going to measure you?
Yeah.
Right? How are they going to measure whether or not the workshop has been successful? In some cases is that they feel better, right? that they're actually talking again if you're working with like a dysfunctional team or something, right?
Yeah.
But how are you going to know that you met their objectives? You have to know what they are. And if you meet them, guess what? Chances are you're going to be invited back.
Right. So you've got to be able, you have to be able to talk about the success, which means you've got to have it clearly defined, and you may need their help in capturing ongoing future success. Let's move on. Let's talk about materials and exercises. This is the meat of your workshop. This is What are those specific things that you need that you're going to utilize during your time with your participants? And I just want to say outright here, the more the better, because if you fine tune your thing and say, I only need one exercise in the morning and one in the afternoon, and things go much faster, and you're suddenly going, I've got half an hour. What am I going to do? So be over prepared here. Make sure that you have enough materials that you can fill any potential gaps, and also know what you can cut out. But, let's start with pre-work. Are you going to have any pre-work? Is this going to be a program where you're introducing a specific program that you're certified in? And so how are you going to get it out to them? What's it going to entail? What's the timeline for this, so that you can make sure that you get the materials or the responses back so you can generate reports? Are you going to use a slide deck? How are you going to present? I find I don't script out my presentations, but I do write an outline. And so the more comfortable I am with the topic, the less I have to fill in the blanks. But if it's a newer topic, I'm for sure going to tend to write more in my script than I am if I'm really knowledgeable about it.
Well, and here I want to go back to another thing you may need are audio and visual needs, like in your workshop. And this again is where you have to go and look at what the support is that you need within the organization. That should be on your form if you're going to need to share a slide deck or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so the other thing too is chances are once you get started on everything that you want to share, and you're going to break it up and build in your breaks and everything, you're going to find that you have a few gaps here and there. And so when that happens, what do you need to create? Or what do you need to go find? What kind of exercise do you need to go hunt for that really brings this point home that you're trying to share with, these clients in this particular workshop?
Right. And there's a lot of materials online that you can get access to.
Lots.
Very inexpensively and or free. So this is where being able to search and identify where the gaps are that you don't have, and how can you fill them.
There you go. Well, let's talk next about follow-up planning. Let me just say, this is where a lot of us get caught is in the lack of follow-up planning. And so really what we want to do now is help you think this through, because if you're in a workshop, what are the next steps for your attendees to take? What do you want them to do at the end of the workshop? What are they committing to? And then do you have a feedback form or something already prepared where they can give you feedback so you can get better and have, some constructive ideas on where you can make improvements? What else, Ann?
And testimonials.
Oh, yes.
Some of that feedback, you can use that as your testimonials. Use that as your going back to talk to your client about the success of the program, but as you're selling your program to other clients, this is an opportunity for you to showcase the results. So don't skimp on this. This is a really important step. The other thing going into this, when we talk about follow-up planning, is what additional business do you want from the client? And part of that will come from success of this program, but you always want to be prepared with the next. What else can I do for you? And it may be do for other groups versus doing for the same audience. So what additional business do you want? And then are you going to offer complimentary follow-up? What's your program look like in terms of, is it just training? Is it training plus follow-up training? Is it training plus one-on-one? Conversations? You want all that to be defined as you go and you meet with your ideal client and you talk about what you want.
One thing I always recommend that coaches do is add a complimentary coaching call, at least to your decision maker. You need to schedule something to follow up with the decision maker after you're gone. And there are several reasons for this. Number one, that person needs to process what you just trained on, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so you want to give them a little bit of space, but not a lot. You want it to be like next week on the calendar, probably. And then you also want them to have time to get feedback from their people.
Mhm.
And they'll do that rather immediately and be willing to share. And then they're going to be interested, particularly if they get good feedback, which we know that they will because you're a great coach. So you're going to want to be able to schedule that follow-up conversation and have the next offer
Absolutely.
ready.
So we've got you putting together your basic information, objectives and outcomes, materials and exercises in your follow-up. It's really now time to map out the session flow. So let's say you've got a 4-hour workshop. You've got to figure out what you're going to do during those 4 hours. So the flow, including at 4 hours, you need to provide a break. And you also need to put padding in there, and you leave time for Q&A. So here's some examples of sort of your basic components of a session flow. One is, what are your core materials? We've talked about that. When are you going to cover them? What's the flow? What are the exercises? How are you going to include the exercises in there? When are you going to use the different exercises? When's discussion going to occur? When are you going to be, are you presenting? If so, then what about follow-up discussion? What else, Rhonda, are the other components?
Well, then what kind of action plan? Like, are you going to create one at the end? Are they going to be creating an action plan to move forward in some way? And then you're going to want to have some kind of summary conversation.
Right.
I used to call it aha moments.
Yeah.
What are your aha moments? And then if they don't say anything, I threaten that they may fire me or something. So,
well, but that's a good one. You could do that rapidly at the end. I've done that too. At the end of your workshop, you could just go around and say, give me, 2 words to describe your aha moment from today.
Yeah, it depends on how much time you have, right? Yeah. So you may want to have different ways of asking that question.
So the bottom line is, map out those 4 hours and recognize that what do you absolutely have to accomplish, and then what's the wiggle room that you've got perhaps on either side.
Because we can promise you one thing: everything's going to change as soon as you get in the room. Because you are driven by your clientele and their response to what you're teaching or sharing. And so naturally that you have a great bit of adaptability you might have to do.
So just be flexible. That's our pearls of wisdom. Be
flexible.
That's
right. So let's move on and to the package. So we know why first of all, back to the workshop for a minute. A workshop can get you in front of a lot of people, especially if you offer, like a free introductory something or other. Those are often good to stimulate lots and lots of interest in people to understand, what you're doing. But eventually you may want a one-on-one package or you lead into coaching like that. And we highly recommend a package because it creates stability for your income of having someone for a longer time period. And it takes time, right? Coaching transformation.
Plus, it sets an expectation between you and the client. So you're telling them, I have a 6-week, 10-week, whatever that package is. And during that time, we're going to accomplish A, B, C, D. They know what to expect. You have set the stage that you're looking for a commitment from them. So when you build these one-on-one coaching packages, it's far more successful than having the one-off and then hope they come back for the second week.
Yes.
So you introduce them to this idea of, here's my package, here's what it entails. So let's start with the basic information. Very similar to the workshop. What's the basic information? And here, who's your ideal client? What are you focusing on? And then who's that ideal client that we talked about yesterday? And what are their greatest challenges? And what are the things that they're struggling with? Because you've got to design your package around that. And then what's the length of the session? So there's 2 ways to think of length of session. One is, how long is your session going to be? Is it going to be 30 minutes, 45, 50, 60, whatever? And then how many sessions are in your package? And this is where you've got to map out, what am I going to accomplish during that X period, 6, 8, 10, whatever number of weeks, that I know that I can achieve success and helping them reach some transformation in their journey of what they're going through. What else,
Sure.
Rhonda, on the base? Is there anything else on basic? Did I miss anything?
Well, you might want to think about what access they have to you between
Mhm.
calls, between sessions. Like, are you going to let them have access to you
Right.
through email, through text message? So, you get to pick those types of basics that
Well,
you want
yeah,
them
and
to
if you're
do.
meeting once a week, that may not be as important as if you're not meeting less frequently, say
Mhm.
once every other week or every 3 weeks, because there's a lot of time in between. So that's a really good point. So Rhonda,
Mhm.
what about objectives and outcomes for these coaching packages?
Well, you have to have them. That's what I'm going to say. It's not just, and I think I'm going to just say that this is where I think coaching gets a bad rap because people think it's just like, well, we just had coffee. No, you need to accomplish things. You
Yeah,
need to make sure that your program and your plan has objectives, not just that you want to accomplish, but what outcomes your clients are going to be expecting.
right.
Like, will they see a healthier path or a path to a healthier lifestyle? Will
Hmm.
they find a new job? Will they land their next job? Will they break that glass ceiling? Will they have a better marriage, better relationship? Will they not kill their kids?
Hmm.
What is it that you're offering, or what is it that they're wanting? And how will you and your client measure that success?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really important. And I think the key here is these objectives and outcomes should absolutely be aligned with your ideal clients' challenges and their frustrations and the things that they're
100%.
struggling with. So just make sure there's alignment there.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about excuse me, as with the workshops, there's materials and exercises. And here your packages could be potentially longer than a workshop in the sense that you're covering X number of weeks. So
Right.
again, do you have any pre-work? It could be an introductory form. It could be, depending on what you're offering, it could be some sort of career testing or communication style or leadership testing that you want to include in that. But whatever it is, you've got to include that in your price, but also include that in the timing before you can jump in and start.
Mhm.
What materials and handouts are you going to use during this? Do you have what you need? Go back to that master list and say, okay, I'm missing XY. I need to go out and again find that. Are there exercises you're going to use? Role playing exercises, written exercises? What are the types of things that you're going to need to integrate into this?
Mhm. Are they
There's
getting any homework?
excuse me, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I always give homework, Ann. Do you always give homework?
I think it's a good idea because it keeps them engaged. And
Yeah.
this is where you're saying to them they have to make a commitment,
Yes.
because it isn't just you're committing to helping them, they have to commit to want to change. And that means they've got to be able to do the work. They've got some lifting here that they have to do to help them accomplish what they want to do. So you've got to map all that out. And then, Rhonda, we've got to map the sessions, right?
Yes, you do. And really, here we want to caution you because you have to be flexible. The
Yeah.
real reason that you want to map your sessions is so that you don't have a program that feels like coffee, like a
No,
visit over
just
coffee.
coffee. Just coffee.
Right, right. And like the basic outcomes that you want them to achieve each week, or the things that you're going to be focusing on each week of the coach, or each month, or each session, it's really for descriptive purposes more, so that they feel like, wow, I'm getting, this is what I get,
Mhm.
that. And so you're thinking it through, uh you know now you get to focus on each individual session. Like, session 1 is probably going to be an introduction, clarifying goals, making sure we do this, you do that,
Mhm.
whatever it is, to get them started. And then so what you're really going to be doing now, you kind of know why we had you make that master list at the very beginning, because now you're going to be separating all of that into the numbers of sessions that you're going to
Right.
have,
And I
even
think,
though
yeah, go ahead.
you're subject to your clients' uh, attitude, feelings, beliefs. The minute they come on to call number 3, they're probably going to bump you off your rails.
Yeah.
And so this is why we want to caution you with flexibility.
And a couple things here, you may map and say, oh, well, we'll get through 2 exercises in this 50-minute session. And suddenly you're 20 minutes in, or you're 50 minutes in and you've only done 1. You've got to be prepared to handle that. The other thing that I think is helpful is putting together your list of questions. So for each session, and you may want to be preparing this, you can do some preparation ahead of time, but at the end of the session, jot down some questions that you might want to ask at the next session. So taking those notes and adding it, but having those banks of questions and having an additional exercise ready to go, either if you're face-to-face or virtual, having that ready to go is going to lead you to be more successful and them to feel more satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So really, just to summarize, when you start, like really focusing on what you're going to be doing, it makes it easier to write those key messages that are going to entice your ideal client to participate or to engage with you.
Yeah.
And so you just always have to keep in mind that you need to stay focused on your client's needs and not on who you are and what you've done. Right? When you're talking to them about your program, it needs to be always focused on them.
That's a good point. And the other thing you can do as you're especially your first time, when you're creating this is where, go back to what we said day one, who got a mentor? Do you have other coaches that you can work with, people that perhaps fit your ideal client, that you can share, get their feedback, get their comments and suggestions and ideas? You could test your workshop. Rhonda, we've gone through a lot of testing when we created our book because we wanted to be sure it was right. And you can do the same, pull some people together and run through the workshop, see how it goes, see how the flow goes. Don't just write it on paper and assume it's going to come alive. You're going to have to make it alive.
Yeah, and you'll make mistakes, and then you'll learn, and then you'll change something. That's how it all works. That goes back to that iterative process that we talked about yesterday that many coaches don't really get. They think if they try it once and they don't get the response they need, that's it. Didn't work. And that's not how it goes. You'll be changing and until you perfect it and it gets you the results that you're looking for. So anyway.
Let's talk about tomorrow, because
tomorrow
is, as Rhonda says, the money honey. This is where we're going to talk about creating revenue and, what does that mean? And how do you what are you going to get paid? How do you price your products? We're going to come up with some suggestions and ideas to help you plan your income, because we know how many of you love to sell, which is probably not true. So
none of you, that's how many like to sell.
Yeah. And just bringing up the word money and income and how much,
break into hives.
So we want to help you. We want to create that opportunity for you to think about this in a non-combative, in a really fresh perspective.
Yeah, so that's tomorrow about the money honey. So Anne, let's tell them about the challenge today, because you know what, you guys, action.
Yeah.
So what are we going to have them do?
Again, as we've said, what's your homework? So we have homework because we want you to come back tomorrow and be prepared to talk about money. To do that, we want you to either start doing a little bit of work on your workshop or your coaching package, whichever one you're going to do, and enter one thing on our Facebook page. And that shows us that you're committed to this, that you're interested in doing this, and that it's going to help you move along.
Yeah, just tell us which one you're working on and that you want to really focus on next, either your workshop or your coaching package. And the reason we want you to do that is because we have a prize. Woohoo! But wait, there's more. There's a prize on Friday for anyone completing the challenge and hitting all 5 days. Let's tell them what we've got, Anne.
So in our book, there are 53 exercises. We've created an exercise ebook that makes it easy for you to do the exercise by filling in the blanks and or printing off. Either way, if you finish the challenge on Friday, we will give everyone an exercise ebook.
Yep. So we'll tell you how to get
How to
that
get it.
next. Well, we'll tell you day after tomorrow how
Yeah.
to get it. So, wow, what a great day. You guys work hard on this workshop or your coaching package because it's going to be a significant part of your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And thanks for joining us today for the challenge. And with that, we are going to head out and we will see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. Thanks for joining us, y'all.
Bye, everyone.